with Bash Bros Movies, and we've been waiting to do this topic for a while now. We've been talking about movie scores for a long time, how awesome they are, not just as pieces of music, but how they make movies much more enjoyable. They give movie character. Oftentimes, they're just their own separate characters in some movies, and there's been a lot of great scores ever since the beginning of ever since movie started. There was a lot of great scores. And I think this is a great way to honor some of those, even though I think we already know we're gonna be talking about a bunch of these, man. I don't know how much we're gonna talk about scores as much as about movies, but let's get the show on the road. What's your honorable mentions first and foremost?
No honorable mentions.
No honorable mentions whatsoever.
Okay, so here's the thing. We're starting a series, if you want, series. We're gonna do our some lists, top 10 lists of some stuff. And here's the thing, there's so many stuff to actually put on these lists. For example, scores. There's so many scores.
Iconic scores.
That technically, for me, had I done this another day, this list would have been different. Had I done this 5 minutes after I actually done the list, this list would have been different.
Agreed.
So for all these lists, I'm knocking all the honorable mentions out.
Okay.
So no list that we do is gonna have honorable mentions just because there's too many of them.
Okay.
I could go on and on for the honorable mentions, but the thing is, there's so many iconic scores. There's so many of them that are so good, they stand out so much.
Which ones didn't make it to your list, but they would have? Like, they're number 1, 11, 12, just a few of them, man.
I don't have any.
Okay,
so
none.
knock off your...
Mine? Okay, I got a few,
but there's a lot of John... Let's just be honest, there's a lot of John Williams on there.
There's definitely a lot of John Williams, a lot of Hans Zimmer, a lot of Howard Shore, a lot of Ennio Morricone scores that I could go on and on, but although some of their scores didn't make it to my list.
I actually have one Zimmer and one Shore, that's about it.
Honestly, I'm not sure which one of mine are Howard Shore, which ones are Hans Zimmer.
I checked up on that stuff. Before I made the list. Wikipedia, baby.
I wanted to, but I was too lazy to do it. I'm just gonna go from memory, so if I'm wrong,
don't
feel
do
free
it.
to correct
Don't
me.
do it at all. You're gonna be wrong more than not.
That's the story of my life. However, I would like to mention a few that I don't know if they made it to your list. Did any Star Wars made it to your list?
I just put Star Wars on my list.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna go. The Imperial March. Listen, because the scores are so tied into the movie, it was easier just listing the movie than the actual title of a certain piece.
Yeah, definitely. And some of those scores, I mean, they go from movie to movie. Like, I mean, we can talk.
And some stuff became so.
Yeah, true that.
It was easier listing the movie than listing the.
I agree completely.
Actual title of a sequence of a score.
Definitely.
Because the score is the whole shebang, all 2 hours of a movie or whatnot.
Yeah, but did they make it to your top 10 list? Any of the Star Wars?
Yeah, Star Wars.
Okay.
Right
To me, they didn't. Okay, to me they didn't. So we're gonna talk about them, I guess. But it's like, because I haven't seen your list. I don't know if you saw mine.
Nope, I haven't seen your list. You haven't seen my list.
So how we do this?
No, you do honorable mentions. You have honorable mentions. You go ahead. You do your honorable mentions.
Okay, my honorable mention, like this is like number 11 on my list, but it could have been much better. Like like you said, if we were doing this like 5 minutes from now. Flash Gordon theme, okay? Flash Gordon is one of those soundtracks, not
on my list. Not that I don't like it, just not on my list.
It's one of those scores that was performed by Queen, an actual band. They did this whole rock music score pretty much for the entire movie, and it's so much part of the movie. You can watch the movie. There's a lot of people out there who don't like this movie for some reason or another, and that's okay. We love it. And to me, not to at least mention Flash Gordon's soundtrack and the score by Queen, it would be sacrilege, okay? It would be, because this list deserves honorable mention, so whatever. Another one would be, and I'm gonna talk about a bunch of them, but basically 80s movies like Ghostbusters and Beverly Hills Cop have some of the most iconic, especially Beverly Hills Cop.
Cop almost made it on my list. It was a hard one to knock
out. That score has been used and overused in so many things. since the movies came out. I mean, not mentioning it at all would also not be fair to the movie itself. And so yeah, another 80s movie, Footloose, also has a great score. I don't know if it's a soundtrack per se, but to me it's a score.
Technically it's a soundtrack, but here's the thing that we talked about. There's some stuff on here where the soundtrack became such a vital part of the movie that initially it is the score now.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned Footloose, you might not remember everything about the movie, but you remember the song.
Yeah.
You know Kenny did a heck of a song, you know Kenny, and
Yeah.
that is part of the score.
So I don't know if Mission Impossible and
Didn't.
Back to the Future made it to your list.
No.
No, not mine either, but not because I didn't want to.
Exactly.
But Back to the Future.
Yeah, Back to the
Alan
Future.
Silvestri's score is so iconic and so memorable. It was just we cannot go and talk about movie scores and not at least mention it. Mission Impossible, even though it's a score for the TV show, it was adapted into the movie and became such a vital part of the movie franchise.
Still, you know it's coming whenever you see a movie.
Dude, you know, it's like as soon as you
Opening
see Tom
sequence
Cruise
is
doing
coming,
whatever,
you're
you know,
gonna see it, you're gonna hear it.
You know it's coming. So
That's what we said. Had we made this list 5 minutes later, probably would have been different.
exactly.
And it's also the reason why I didn't put honorable mentions on there, because there's really so many of them.
Exactly, and there's a bunch of more movies that we could go on and say how much those scores made the movies, but let's go and talk about. So we do this first bottom 5, and then 5 through 3, and then the first 2, right? That's how we do it.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so my number 10, you want me to start, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my number
No.
10, this is one of the reasons that this list was so hard to make, and to me this is gonna be a comic book movie, and it's not the one you think. It's Kick-Ass. Unfortunately, I love that movie so much.
There you have it. I mean, Beverly Hills Cop didn't make it. Back to the Future didn't make it, but Kick-Ass did.
Flash Gordon was supposed to be number 10, but as we were preparing for other stuff, other lists, certain movies came into perspective, and like you said, if we've done this list 5 minutes earlier, 5 minutes later, I'm sure Flash Gordon would be number 10, if not even higher. Okay, maybe even higher. So it's like I'm gonna go with Kick-Ass this time around, because that movie has such a great score. It's such a great movie, not for little kids. So like, yeah, I had to come onto the list. Because I love that score, and it sticks in my head for days to come after I watch the movie.
What's number 9?
Number 9, I don't know if this made it to your list. If it didn't, shame on you. But it's the one we talked about before in our video game movie list, top 5 movies. It's Mortal Kombat.
Did not make it on my list.
Okay, it's a shame. It's one of the most iconic score of the 90s.
It is.
And
I'll give you that. It's good soundtrack.
Oh, it's not just a good soundtrack, it's a great score.
Goes on to show you how many
that is the
great
score of the
scores
movie,
there are
because
there.
it keeps going on throughout the movie, and you cannot watch Mortal Kombat and not yell Mortal Kombat as soon as the movie starts. So that's about it.
8.
Number 8. Okay, this one was, because it comes from one of my favorite comedies of all time, and this was hard not to put any higher, or it could have even been lower if I decided to go with Flash Gordon, for example. And it's a Peter Gunn theme from the Blues Brothers.
Shane.
Dude,
It's much higher on my list.
you should have said so. So we'll talk about it later then.
I don't know your list. You don't know my list.
Well, okay.
2 laptops, baby. Alright.
Number 7? Okay. So this might come as a surprise, but it's a Western. And it's an Ennio Morricone.
Not a surprise at all.
Okay. And it's not the one you
mention
think.
it on my list.
It's for a few dollars more.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, because not many people know, but even though The Good, the Bad and the Ugly theme is much more iconic, much more memorable, to me for a few dollars more, and even Fistful of Dollars has a much better score than The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. But they're all, the three we talked about it before in our top trilogies movies list. It's one of the best trilogies out there. It has some of the best scores ever, and this is one of those. Is like sticks in my head for days to come. I even whistle it, even though I'm bad at it, and people look at me crazy when I'm walking down the street. So,
I can confirm that.
Number 6. Okay, this is where it gets really tough, because this is where the top scores come about. Okay, this one I wanted to put it higher, but unfortunately I couldn't for various reasons, and it's Escape from New York. I don't know if it's on your list. To me, this is one of the best scores ever of all time. John Carpenter did such a great job. When I watched the movie, this score is so much part of that movie. You cannot watch the movie and hum along and hum the score, because it's all throughout the movie.
Okay.
And it's definitely one of the most iconic 80s scores in my opinion. It deserves to be on any list whatsoever. Shame on you, man. Shame on you.
For what?
For not putting it on your list.
Who?
Escape from New York.
Why?
Whatever, man.
My turn?
Your turn, man.
Okay, my
10 to 5.
My 10 to
6.
5 is 6 is essentially John Williams' Funfest.
Oh, of course.
Other than the Hans Zimmer, then kind of
Oh, man.
went in there.
Somehow I could have seen this coming. I don't know why I didn't.
But you can get it's my top 5 even if you wanted to. Coming in at number 10 is Star Wars.
Okay.
I actually had to put it on the list. I was trying to figure out who do I put in order to kick Star Wars off, but I couldn't. Essentially, I really wanted to, but you know.
Let's go just with the main score for now. I mean, Imperial March should be in there, Duel of the Fates, the Force theme, they should all be in there,
Star Wars, when you hear it, you know it's Star Wars.
Definitely. It's hard not to know John Williams' score when you hear it, especially a Star Wars score.
Coming in number 9 is Mr. Indy Jones.
Yeah.
Probably not on your list.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I like it, but not that much.
I had to give it props. It's still a good
It's still great to listen to, man.
Exactly. I was actually, when I was preparing this list, I was actually listening to some of these scores just to
Of course.
remind myself.
Like I did.
And sometimes you'll start to push that pause button.
Yep.
Coming in number 8 is the Hans Zimmer amidst the John Williamses with the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Was that his?
That's his.
I thought that was someone else.
So basically, at this point, when you hear it, you know it.
Definitely. It's a great score.
Yeah.
Very piratey, very seaworthy, very I mean, when you hear it,
became such a part of
the movies.
The movies and everything that Johnny
I would be
Depp
surprised
does on
if
screen.
this. Yeah, I would be surprised if this score not been on your list, because you love those movies so much.
Yeah.
They take a very high rating on the top 10 franchises list. So
They did. Coming in at number 7 is the Jurassic Park. I don't know if it's on your list.
it's not on my list. I like the score, but I don't like it that much.
I do. I'm sorry, man. Like I said, I was listening to the scores and I was like, man, this is so good. This one I actually listened to a couple of times, and my younger brother's like, you watching Jurassic Park? That's all I'm saying. He heard it, he knew it.
Your brother's my brother too, man.
Yeah. You weren't here.
I wasn't.
Coming in number 6 is Superman.
The John Williams score. Okay, we're gonna talk about that one later.
That was hard not to put higher. That's all I'm gonna say.
I know. We're gonna find out later why. Because I'm very interested to know
So
why
you
it's not
gotta
any
figure out
higher.
why it's not high. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out. So 5-3 now, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, coming in at number 5 for me, it's Pacific Rim. From Ramin Djawadi, the author of not just Game of Thrones, but Iron Man, Person of Interest, and Warcraft, among many others. This score, like this movie, I remember for the score mostly. Like it has this great score that just makes you want to go into a Jaeger and go fight some kaiju, man. So yeah, it's number 5. I love that score, man. I love that score. Pumps me up, and I want to go beat something up every time I hear it. So,
But he controls himself because he knew he would get beaten up too.
oh, I know. I definitely get beaten up by anybody. So yeah.
Moving on.
Coming in number 4. This is why it was hard not to put like Flash Gordons and Beverly Hills Copses and whatnot. Ant-Man. Okay, ever since I saw that movie, the score is... Christoph Beck did such a great job with and watching, there's a clip on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, with him and his daughter playing piano and violin that makes it even better. It's only 2 minutes long, if not, yeah, about 2 minutes long, and it's much better than the one that's in the movie. So this is a score that I hum every once in a while, every so often, like at least once a week, if not more often. So
if not twice a week.
If not twice a day. So had to be on the list. Ant-Man. At number 3. This one, I wanted to, it's like it was hard not to put it on the list. But number 3, it's Promontory from the last of the
We'll talk
Mohicans.
about that later.
Is it that high on your list?
That high on my list.
Good. At least something. At least something.
Coming in at number 5 is the Howard Shore, if you would, with the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I'm not
Here's
surprised.
the thing, I had to put the whole thing because just taking a sequence out of it, it's hard. Because when you look at something that's really that epic, which Lord of the Rings is, it deserves an epic score.
Definitely.
Definitely has an epic score. So to take one and say Lord of the, Fellowship of the Rings 2000, listen, the whole thing is so damn epic. Had to be on this list. Probably not on yours.
Nope.
It is on mine. He knows how much I love Lord of the Rings, so I had to be there.
Yeah, I prefer Hobbit the book over any of the movies. So
We are talking about the movies here.
I know. I'm just saying.
Coming in number 4 is the before mentioned Peter Gunn's Blues Brothers.
So high on the list.
So high on the list just because the whole soundtrack is the score.
Pretty much. Pretty
And
much.
it's so finely woven into the movie. Exactly. The whole thing, you can't imagine it without the song.
way,
So
man.
the whole soundtrack is essentially the score. And the score itself is pretty...
It's pretty memorable, very hummable.
Yeah. It's blues. I hope it's blues. There are Blues Brothers.
Dude,
If it wasn't blues, that'd be weird.
should have worn the Blues Brothers t-shirt. Oh well, whatever.
But Blues Brothers is number 4. And number 3, I think my number 3 is your number 1.
If we're talking about the magnificent ones, yeah.
So Magnificent 7 coming at
Let's talk
number
about them
3.
later. Let's talk about them
It's
later.
higher on his list, obviously, so...
It deserves to be there, man. It deserves to be.
Listen, put it in number 3 just tells you how much
I'm
what
wondering-
I think of 1 and 2.
I'm wondering what else is on. I already know what is there, one of them, but...
You don't know the other one.
Okay, my number 2 is your number 6.
Okay?
Superman.
Okay?
Okay. To me, this okay, when you're watching the original Superman, as soon as once Kal-El goes for Earth, the score starts, it just keeps going. It doesn't stop. You think it's gonna go on forever and ever and
you kind
ever.
of hope it would because it's that good.
And once it starts hitting that climax, you're hoping it's not gonna stop ever. But it does, eventually. Eventually it stops. But it's one of those scores that once you watch the original Superman and once you hear that score, it's even if...
And of course it's used in
Even if
every
you're
single Superman scene ever.
Yeah.
Not
But
just in Superman movies, but whenever Superman shows up, it's there, you hear it.
yeah. And Seinfeld used it, Deadpool used it.
Everybody used it.
It's used. I have no idea who did the score for the animated Superman animated series, but to me, it definitely draws an inspiration from
Oh,
the
yeah,
John
definitely.
Williams score. So listen, even if you don't like this score, it is so long, it's impossible to get it out of your head or forget it, or at least forget how long it is, because you'll remember it forever once you hear it. You can only hear, even if you hear it only once in your life, you'll remember it forever. So to me, Superman score by John Williams, number 2 score of all time.
Number 6 on my list, but
I don't know why. I mean, I know why, but
you're number 1.
you're number 2, man.
Chariots of Fire.
I was hoping that would make it to your list. I definitely
couldn't not be on this list.
I was hoping that was one of the reasons you didn't have any honorable mentions, because, like I said, it's a crime not to mention Chariots of Fire.
There's a lot of, like I said, there's certain things about this list that had I made it 5 minutes different later,
I'm already
would be
rethinking
different.
my list while we're doing this.
My number 1 and my number 2 don't change.
Okay.
They stay the same on that list.
So your
and
number
on this
1
list, Chariots of Fire is
your
number 2.
Okay, your number 1 is then my number 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and my number 1 is your number 3.
Yeah.
And we didn't plan any of this
No.
in advance, except making these lists. So my number 1 is Magnificent 7. Listen, I've been listening to Magnificent 7 score for the last few weeks on a regular basis, and every time I hear it, I just can't. I think it's a perfect score. It goes up, it goes down, the orchestra,
Not as
tempo.
perfect as my number 1.
That's definitely debatable, but I think Magnificent 7, they both stay in the head for a long time. They're both memorable, they're both epics in some way or another, and to me Magnificent 7 is a better score.
To me, The Last of the Mohicans is the perfect score, because we mentioned that for a lot of movies, sound scores become such a vital part, but in no movie is that more evident than in The Last of the Mohicans.
That's debatable, but
From
I'll give it to
start
you for the sake of discussion. I'll give you that, because that's true. That's
the first time I watched the movie, I was too young to understand what was happening, but I figured out the music. Second time I watched it, I was a little bit older, and I could kind of figure out what was going on, but I still figure out the music.
Yeah.
Music, the Trevor Jones and Randy Edelman did the score for the Last of the Mohicans, and they do a heck of a job.
That wasn't Howard Shore?
No, it wasn't Howard Shore. And that score follows that movie through all the highs, lows, and not only does it a fantastic job of following it, it actually makes it better.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what these old scores are, obviously you've never seen these movies. And
YouTube them.
Please do.
You got them on YouTube.
Please
some
do.
of these go on for hours. Some of them you can just check out the main themes.
Yeah.
But some of these go on for a while, but they're definitely worth to listen.
Definitely, and I listen to them every so often. Because movie scores are pretty much the only thing I listen to these days. So they lift me up, they comfort me, they put me to sleep sometimes when I need sleep, and they have nothing else to do because I don't know what to do with my hands, and I have to turn.
Not exactly the picture we needed to see, but thank you.
Anyways, so yeah, whatever, and this has to be one of our shortest top 10 lists ever of all time. I'm not sure what the running time is, but I'm sure when I check it's gonna be less than half an hour, if not half an hour. So yeah, thank you for joining us. Let us know what your top 10 movie scores are. If you have any, what are some scores you like to listen to, like you listen to any other piece of music. Until next time, like, subscribe, share, and Bash Bros out.